Ah, greetings, B-movie aficionados.
All right, hello. Welcome to A Couple Flicks. I am Tristan.
I am Nick.
And I'm Zach.
So before we get started, did either of you see anything interesting in the past however many weeks?
Yeah, it's been a while, yeah.
Yeah.
I did see a bunch, I'm sure. I did definitely know that.
Yeah.
I finally saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see Quentin Tarantino's Golden Globe speech about his script?
No, I didn't get to see that.
I haven't seen it yet either. I'm
He's
excited
like,
though.
he's like, I have no one to thank except for myself because I wrote it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Wow. Nice. Yeah, no, I really love that movie. Yeah, so is there any others you off the top of your head you want to talk about, or?
No.
Okay. What about you?
The last thing I saw before these three was Bad Times at the El Royale.
Ooh, I have that in Blu-ray right on
Yeah.
my desk.
Yeah.
It's
Did
pretty
you like
good.
that one?
Yeah. It's by Drew Goddard, who did Cabin in the Woods, so
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
yeah.
I didn't know that. Now I have to watch it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Check it out. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one. I saw The Lighthouse.
Oh,
Yeah.
lucky.
And I really loved it.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yeah, it's definitely out there. I can picture a lot of people really not liking it very much, but it was weird enough that I loved it. You know, it was, yeah. I think I liked it about as much as the Witch. I think I'd have to rewatch it, which I'm dying to do. But yeah, it's very strange and kind of surreal, like not only in its imagery but also in its dialogue. Like it's a really weird sounding movie too. So I loved it. And then let's see,
Is that streamable anywhere?
it is now.
Okay,
Yeah.
word.
And yeah, I would recommend watching it.
Came out on Blu-ray today, too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah. And then I watched I saw Cats.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And you know, I can definitely see why people don't like it, you know, but it didn't really bother me that much. Like I like a lot of musicals. I know that like a lot of people don't, and I get the impression that neither of you really dig musicals very much. I definitely wouldn't recommend it to you guys. And like I think a lot of people hate Cats, like the Broadway show. It's a show that a lot of people really hate, and yet it's like the most successful Broadway play of all time or something like that. Which only makes people who hate it even more. So I think there's a lot of bile going on with that. Like I would still say that it's a terrible movie. You know, the effects are just they're really scary looking, and the bodies are really strange. I really don't understand why they didn't get a costume designer and a makeup designer for this movie, because there's so many people who would love to do something like that for a movie like this. There's so many people who love doing makeup and costume design in this world, and instead they're like, no, we're just gonna make it all CGI, blah blah blah. Like, and so that's the direction they went with it, which to me is like kind of kills the whole idea of it. But having said that, like the part of me, like I still really love musicals. I really love weird musicals, like even the ones that a lot of people hate. Like I love Xanadu, I love The Apple, I love The Wiz. There's a lot of really bad musicals that I love, and actually the musicals that I tend to hate are the ones that a lot of people love. Like I despise Grease, for example, you know, which happens to be one that even a lot of people who hate musicals love, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the part of me who loves weird musicals loved this movie. I wouldn't recommend it though, personally.
Yeah, I did see the monologue Gervais did.
Yeah.
He made a little,
Yeah.
he poked fun at it. He's like,
Yeah.
and we got to see James Corden as a giant pussy. And yeah, he was also in Cats. Nobody saw that.
Yeah. Well, I did.
Yeah.
I love that speech, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the movie. It's not, in my opinion, it's not as bad as like people say it is. It is still really awful, and there's parts of it where like I was watching it and I wanted to die, you know. And like those parts are genuinely like atrocious, you know. But for the most part, it was. I mean, I wasn't bored watching it, so, and that's really kind of what I judge my musical standards by, is whether I get bored watching it or not. And with this one, I didn't. So,
Yeah.
and then the last movie I saw recently, which I really loved, was the new Adam Sandler movie, Uncut Gems, which I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, I'm seeing it this week sometime.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I like the Safdie brothers films a lot. I don't know if have either of you seen any of their other films?
What'd they make?
They made Good Time with Robert Pattinson.
No, I didn't see that one. I wanted to see that one too.
That one's really, really good. This one, Uncut Gems, isn't as good as that one, but I still really liked it a lot. That one was the other big like Robert Pattinson movie, Good Time, that he was in. That, yeah, but yeah, Uncut Gems I liked a lot. So, and I liked I don't know, I like their style, the Safdie brothers. They're interesting filmmakers. Their films are like intimate in kind of a intense way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway,
It's one I want to check out for sure.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, I liked it. Okay, so let's get started. So the film that you chose to talk about.
Yep, my choice was Circuitry, man. No real reason why I chose it again. And I guess the only way to describe this is like a Mad Max ripoff, I guess.
Yeah, in
like
a
a
sense.
post-apocalyptic.
A little bit more robotic,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Like the same kind of, instead of water, it's oxygen.
yeah, pretty much.
It takes place, what it is, it said like 40 years after the last tree fell, or something. Like, I forget exactly the words they used. It was 40 years after the last ocean died, in the last tree in the rainforest. And I was just, oh yeah, so like 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Jokes. But yeah, takes place in, apparently everyone lives underground, like an underground society.
Yeah.
Because there's no oxygen up on the top level surface. So yeah, they have just giant oxygen stuff, and starts out with this chick. I don't know. She's some type of I guess everyone's somewhat cyborg in this.
Yeah.
Cyborg part.
There's not very much humanness in this movie at all.
She's some kind of hitman or assassin or hired gun. I don't know. She's like, what'd they call her? Like strong arm or strong hand?
Yeah, like a bounty. It's basically like a bounty hunter type, but like one who goes on missions, I guess. Like not, I don't know. Which I guess I don't know what that would be actually.
Yeah.
But
anyway, so she was assigned to protect this lady in a business, like an underground business transaction of computer chips of some sort. And it turned out, I don't know, some type of double cross, or the police were involved. They were doing a sting on it. And so shit goes down. She grabs it and runs. People die. and then the rest of the movie is basically her trying to get these chips, these microchips, to New York City to sell to somebody.
Yeah.
Just to make money. And so she's trying to get from LA to New York City through the underground passageway, while she's being chased by the dealer, who is like that guy with wires and shit you see on the front cover, who I thought was Circuitry Man.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I thought he was going to be Circuitry Man and the good guy.
Yeah.
But it turns out no.
No, he's the bad guy.
The bad guy, and the Circuitry Man was a a cyborg that was like, I guess there's different types of cyborgs of some sort. Like he's a full robot that was a romance robot, which I'm assuming is a male prostitute robot, like a sex robot.
I mean, that's it. Basically, like
implied.
what if you ever see the movie AI, Artificial Intelligence? It's basically like what Jude Law's character was in that. This is sort of like a rough draft version of that character.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, 'cause it doesn't he looks like straight off the cover of one of those erotic fiction novels that old ladies read, like the flowing hair, the fluffy white shirt and shit.
The like immaculate chin.
Yeah.
Just
and so his programming was he's in the search of his lost love, which never existed. It was just a program for him to be used, apparently.
Yeah.
Which is whatever, I guess. I didn't really give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of briefly talked about. So, and the only reason it got talked about was like it was being recorded basically, and it was going to be used again later. So it's hard to explain, but it makes sense when you watch the movie.
And the main character also uses it against him as well, saying she knows where your girlfriend is. Help me get to New York.
Yeah, so she's no better than the villains, basically.
Yep.
I mean, but whatever.
Yeah, and he doesn't. And one interesting bit about him is he doesn't plug in to drive and shit, because all the cars you can, if you're like attached, you can like plug in and drive with your brain and shit or something.
Yeah. I appreciated that concept.
Yeah, he's a robot that drives fully normal, I guess. Yeah, but those two are being chased by the bad guys, who are also being chased by the police, who are kind of buffoonish in this.
Yeah, they're like Keystone Cop types, which doesn't really fit the tone of the movie, but they go with it anyway.
Like there was that one I just laughed at because they were acted pretty well. I thought played their part. Like the other ones were flat mostly, except for like Tube guy.
Yeah.
But I liked when they got away.
Tube.
They were like the cops were shooting at them, and they were just kind of like turning around like just shooting in their horse. It was like whatever.
And there was. There was that interesting thing about the sewer leeches.
Oh, yeah, so on their way to New York City, they're driving. There's apparently a whole underground system now that connects the entire United States.
Yeah.
So they can, but it was blocked off for some reason, and sewer leeches started dropping down, which I guess can kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, they're bad. And that's the one thing that kind of bothered me is like she was being a bitch to the robot, and he was being kind of, I don't know, robot-y.
Yeah.
But after he saved him by just kind of chucking his shirt over him, she fell in love with him or something.
Yeah. I mean,
I sensed no chemistry between the two, even though they turned out to be romantically involved.
Yeah, it was almost like a plot twist when you suddenly find that out.
Yeah,
like there was no development
came out
at all.
of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just, you saved me for thanks for the jacket. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And during that leech scene, they meet a dude that I guess lives down in that parking lot part, who lives off the sewer slugs. I guess if you boil them enough, you can eat them.
Yeah.
Without dying.
And that guy, he was played by somebody.
He looked a lot like Sam Rockwell.
I'm not gonna look it up, but
I kept getting like in certain lights and angles. He looked a lot like Sam Rockwell. I know it's not him, but
no, it's not. It was some actor. I don't remember. You can keep talking. I'll look it up.
So I liked him kind of, and it, like sometimes he was annoying, but I could tell he was comic relief-ish.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't that funny, but it was actually more depressing than it was funny. But
it's kind of weird. But after they got out, like, because he had some gas tanks, so they were able to, escape to the top side with, oxygen and drive around.
Yeah.
And they eventually go to an oxygen refilling station. More shit goes down.
Yeah.
And then he ditches them. Like I don't blame. Like, this guy was somewhat like likable, but then for no reason he just ditches them. Not surprised or anything, but
He was played by Dennis Christopher from Chariots of Fire and Breaking Away. Like he was actually like a well-known like popular actor at the time, and somehow he wound up in this movie, like, which I just found kind of funny. Like, I mean, he did B movies here and there, but it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of strange to see him in this role.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there was, the scene at the.
There's a really confusing like bar fight scene. Oh, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that confusing, but I just kind of didn't really get what they were going for, like, because if they were trying to kind of depict like a broke down future world where nothing works, like, I don't understand why there was an oxygen room, like, or an oxygen chamber in the bar,
Right.
like
they were saying. They were implying that going topside you don't really do.
Yeah.
Yet there seems to be not that big of an issue if you get some oxygen tanks and people are living up there kind of normally. So
yeah, like,
I mean,
it
made a whole deal of an underground city where, I don't know. I mean, sure, might be a little difficult to live up top because you have to be connected to an oxygen shit, but
yeah.
didn't seem like that big of an issue apparently.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression. It was just sort of strange. I mean,
Yeah.
they because like it was happening, but then they kind of left, and then it was like, yeah. So
In that whole fight scene, like, again, I was confused. If he's a robot, why does he need oxygen to breathe?
that was the other thing
was
that I didn't get. Like, that makes no sense. Like there's nothing. I can't think of a way that could work. Like,
At
it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
That bar
That was
scene was like, somewhat comedic because he was stuck in the deoxygenation
Yeah, and he was making
chamber.
funny faces.
Like,
and it's
they have one of, like, in space shuttles or whatever,
Yeah.
you have to wait there to oxygenize, and
Yeah.
they kept turning it on and off, and he kept choking and then breathing and then choking and then breathing, and it was
Yeah.
like comedic.
Yeah,
And then
and it was just kind of random. Like,
yeah,
I just don't know what they were going for with that.
I think it was like trying to be a comedic fight of some
Yeah.
sort, but
Yeah.
kind of out. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, the plot honestly was just fairly boilerplate. That's why I kind of just
Yeah.
saw like, oh, this is Mad Max. When did Mad Max came out before? Like the first
Yeah,
one?
the first one came out in 1979.
79. Okay.
Yeah, around the same time as the first Star Wars.
Because I never saw the original ones. Honestly, did it have to do with, like, was it similar to Fury Road with, like?
Oh, Fury Road is unquestionably the best one in the
but
whole series.
But plot wise, like, there's water depleted.
Yeah, like,
Okay.
it did follow that same kind of plot. And it's just that, like, so, like, Mad Max existed, right? And then Road Warrior came out, which is kind
Escape
of
from LA.
yeah, like
Escape from New York.
yeah, but the Road Warrior is the sequel to Mad Max, and
Yeah.
and basically, like, it was the kind of movie that was made in such a way that, like, if you hadn't seen the first Mad Max movie, it didn't really matter. Like, you
Right.
could start with the Road Warrior and it wouldn't make a difference,
Just like Fury Road.
Exactly.
It's my understanding that they're just, like, kind of different Mad Maxes.
Yeah, it's like sub-series of Mad
Yeah.
Maxes,
Like anthology series.
Yeah, Road Warrior and Beyond Thunderdome follow kind of a totally separate story than the first Mad Max, and then Fury Road follows a totally separate story from those.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mad Max Fury Road's the best one though. Like,
Mhm.
and the Road Warrior up until Fury Road came out was considered the best one because
And I haven't seen the Escape from LA one or whatever those. I know those are pretty shitty.
Escape from New York, Escape from LA.
Did
those
those
ones-
come out in the 80s? Right?
Yeah, that was, the second one came out in the 90s, I think, but the first one came out in the 80s, and yeah, Kurt Russell, which it's like, yeah, John Carpenter. Yeah, not everybody likes those movies, but
So I'm assuming they were just kind of ripping off Mad Max and those Escape from movies, or because I haven't seen any, but I mean besides Fury Road, because it was just like a post-apocalyptic chase movie. That's kind of what Fury Road was, and that's.
I mean, I think that, like, movies like that, like, that are about the apocalypse, that are kind of about, like, things like Mad Max and, like, things like that, I feel like they're, like, a lot of them are distinct enough that I can separate something like Escape from New York from Mad Max, just because it's John Carpenter, and John Carpenter is really good at kind of making something feel like his own.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of other post-apocalyptic movies like that, which I feel like are separate enough in its concept and idea from Mad Max that they work on their own ways. So, but
Yeah, true. I can see that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just like a post-apocalyptic chase movie.
Yeah.
Which is a genre apparently now.
Oh yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, after that bar scene, I guess not a lot happens until they get to New York.
Basically,
It's just
there's some backbiting. There's, you got the typical scene where the villain, decides to leave the hero for dead.
alive, of course.
Yeah, he doesn't kill him. He just leaves him for dead after explaining what his evil plan is. I'm so sick of seeing that. I see that in so
So
many
dumb.
movies, like Book of Eli, there were so many things about that movie that frustrated me, and that was one of them. And there's I just see that so much. And I liked it when it happened in Planet Terror because Bruce Willis kind of made fun of it a little bit because he's like, well, you're about to die, but let me spin it all for you real quick. It was funny because it was kind of poking fun at the fact that it was something that so many villains do. So I like when it's self-aware like that. But in this movie, it's kind of just humiliating. It made me actually feel humiliated for the villain rather than the hero, which is kind of not what you're supposed to do when you're making an action movie like this. And Cyborg did the same thing, where the villain makes a bigger fool of himself than the hero, and through the course of torturing the hero. It's just so funny to me.
Yeah, and he could what's his fucking tube guy could insert his thing and show him memories, so he showed him the conversation that his girlfriend wasn't alive.
Yeah.
Which I thought they were going to expound on, she also knew because she was there. They showed whatever her name is, the main character.
Yeah.
They showed, but it didn't really. The robot guy didn't mention that Circuitry Man.
Yeah, I think it's Circuitry Man.
Whoever Circuitry.
The hero, I believe, is Circuitry Man.
They just called him Romeo, right? For
Yeah.
a lot of it. So,
yeah, but then in one scene, the villain, I think you probably noticed this. The villain calls him Circuitry Man for no reason. He's like, take this, Circuitry Man. And then that's it.
Yeah, because I was confused for most of the movie. Which ones? Because I kind of remember the bad guy referring to himself as a Circuitry Man as well.
They're both Circuitry men. The title.
The Circuitry Man?
The title should be Circuitry Men, not Circuitry Man.
Yeah, and he could take memories from people too or something. He was shoving it in humans.
He was doing all kinds of stuff. It was just didn't really quite connect with what was going on earlier in the movie, based on the logic that those characters had. It was just maybe he's just he's super powered, I guess, is what they were going for.
And back to that is he didn't confront her about that. I remember maybe it flashed. He didn't confront her about knowing and lying to him to use him or anything.
Yeah,
when they reconnected, right?
Yeah, not really. Yeah,
there was no payoff for that whole thing at all.
No,
they could have just said, "Oh, I'm programmed to, I don't know, help." And she somehow does it. I don't know, fucking.
Yeah,
it's a computer chip. She makes him do it. Didn't have to do the whole lost girlfriend program thing.
No.
It ultimately didn't fucking pay off when it kind of could have a little bit.
Yeah.
That, but yeah.
Yeah, they didn't bother with it.
And eventually, the sewer guy, he comes back and helps.
Yeah.
Oh, shock.
Yeah.
He's not shocked. And they don't really give him any shit either once he comes back to help. They're like, oh, you fucked us hard that one time, almost left us for dead.
Yeah.
But you're back here and saved us, thanks. They don't even say that. They just kind of act like nothing happened.
Basically, it's... I don't know. I was like, whatever. It's the same thing as letting the thief follow your party and he says, hey, or he or she says, oh, let me join you, and then you let them. It's basically the same concept if you apply it to D&D rules or something like that. It's so stupid.
Yeah. And then there's more fighting once they got to New York City, right? Yeah. There's more fighting again.
Yeah.
Once they got there. I like that sidekick of the one that was just calling everyone else master.
That was funny.
murdering people and going with whoever killed the latest guy or was the most powerful looking.
Yeah.
She was funny.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there were some distinct sort of things about the characters here and there. I mean, I didn't really like the main character, the whatever her name is, just only because like I didn't really have any reason to like her, you know. And
so flat.
yeah, I ultimately felt more sorry for the cyborg.
Yeah. I also didn't really like him either.
I didn't like him, but I pitied him enough that it's like, well, I want you to at least. It's like when you're watching a sports game and you don't even care about who wins, you just kind of root for the person who's losing. That's kind of how I felt.
I guess.
Because basically, yeah, he was basically just getting used by everybody in this movie. So, so there's not really any way to even relate to him as a character, but so be it. And then the Circuitry man was probably the most interesting.
Yeah, I liked him the most.
Yeah.
Of all of them.
Yeah.
The bad guy. He had the best performance for sure.
Yeah, and he was funny. I mean, here and there, like,
Yeah.
or at least he tried to be. You know, maybe not laugh out loud funny, but
Yeah.
still pretty funny.
I'm assuming all that makeup helped him act.
Yeah.
Because the other two were so flat. The two mains, I saw no
Oh my
chemistry
gosh,
between
yeah.
them, and their acting was just flat as fuck.
Yeah.
And whatever that sewer guy, he was pretty good too.
Yeah.
But he was
Actually,
also a crazy character kind, so it's kind of easier, I think, to get into that.
yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, he's more likable than the main characters because even
Yeah.
though he betrays them, you at least get why he does it. You know.
It's not surprising. He's like a guy that's been living on his own, surviving on his own and shit. Okay,
Yeah.
he's just doing what he does.
Yeah.
Not surprised.
The end.
Most realistic. Like,
Yeah. So, but I give it props for being different. I feel like this movie, I like the way it began and I like the way it ended, but pretty much everything that happens in between, from the escape to, it all mostly just kind of felt like a lot of filler. Like, okay, what are we going to do? Like for this part of the plot, and they don't really advance the story. It's pretty much just these characters kind of chasing each other, and that's about it. Like, so I didn't really enjoy all that stuff, but I really like the last part of this movie a lot, like the final battle and all that stuff, if you can call it that. I like the sort of kind of vaporware type graphics and images that kind of there wasn't a lot of them. They didn't really utilize much. I feel like they kind of weren't very ambitious, but I still kind of enjoyed the fact that they showed up, even though, I mean, they were pretty campy looking, but I mean, that's kind of, I was so used to that kind of thing at that point. I mean, I grew up on Sega CD-ROM games with the full motion video with the really bad acting and the storylines that make no freaking sense, and the intros where everybody like just overemphasizes their lines and stuff, and it's just like the worst acting ever, and there's nothing going on. I grew up on that, so of course this is gonna look better to me,
right.
like in comparison. So, but I dug I dug it. It's, yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me of the type of movie I probably would have watched like on late night television growing up, because I used to watch a lot of, like, I've seen so many Van Damme movies that were like really stupid, but I don't know, it kind of had that quality to it. It felt sort of cheap. It wasn't high tech and sophisticated like Johnny Mnemonic, which I'm not saying that that's like a good movie either, but it's not like, it has a cheaper kind of low budget type of quality. Like, it looked like something that was made more for television. The effects weren't that good. The costumes were cool in like a cheap way, like you could kind of tell how they were made, but that's kind of part of the fun.
Yeah.
And also, like, it felt like a world that was lived in. I felt like the way these people made this movie, it felt like they're really good at world building with this one.
Yeah, that's one thing I would say is really good too, because I mean, I was just watching some YouTube videos, not about this, but just about world building in general, and it's about like fantasy kind of stuff, and it refers to going deeper and magic, kind of like, with fantasy and shit, but like it kind of refers to just storytelling in general. If you go hard on like one element and go deep into it, instead of having a wide array of crazy stuff that are more shallow, it goes into a deeper, richer storytelling experience, and
Yeah.
they equated it to what was the Metal Gear Solid's newest game?
Oh,
The
Phantom, not Phantom.
not
Pain.
Metal Gear Solid, but the
Oh.
Hidekyo. He just made that new one.
The Death Stranding.
Yeah, so they compared it to that, in which the main thing of that world is that there's this rain that falls, I guess, that just ages everything as it touches. It's called time fall.
Yeah.
And they don't go into like a shit ton of other aspects. They just dive deep into the effects of this time fall in the world and how it would realistically start panning out.
Okay.
Instead of a lot of like fantasy stuff that have a wide array of stuff that they don't go deep into, which leads to a lot more plot holes.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why does this work when that doesn't? Whereas if you go with just one really solid idea, you can flesh it out.
Yeah.
You know, explain any kind of plot holes they might have, which is what I liked in this, is that there's the oxygenation is, out on the top side, but there's a cool world underneath. I don't know why they needed the chips, what the chips were for.
Yeah, that was something
going to buy them
they never explained that.
So that the entire plot was not explained, but the world was pretty neat to watch.
Yeah, like point is, you could tell they didn't have a lot to work with, and so, but they did the best that they could, at least on that with that aspect of the film, and that can make a pretty big difference sometimes. If the plot isn't that interesting, if what's around it works, sometimes it can be cool. I don't know. What do you think?
I thought it was decent. And like you guys were saying, like some of the production value wasn't there.
Yeah.
But like in the cars, they like frosted the windows, and they were clearly doing like this.
Yeah. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either, but I believe it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then like the action scenes kind of happened like off screen.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah,
That
a lot
was-
of that did happen off screen. That was
Yeah.
weird.
They weren't very ambitious with the action scenes.
Yeah. I was at least interested during the whole thing. I wasn't like bored.
No, I wasn't either. I at least wanted to see where it was going, how it would end.
Yeah.
I felt like a good like chunk in the middle. Just felt like, I don't know, nothing was going forward for me, and so that's sort of the one part of the movie that I didn't really like, was just how the plot kind of just stopped, for a while. But I still liked it.
Yeah.
So
Pretty interesting.
yeah. I don't know if I'd watch it again, but
Probably wouldn't.
yeah. I mean, maybe in 25 years or something, I'm bored and I feel nostalgic for this time, which I highly doubt that I will be. But
Yeah.
if I do, maybe I'll watch it then. But I don't know. I think I'd
There's
rather
also a sequel you can watch.
Oh shit! Is
Oh,
there?
really?
Yep.
Huh.
There's a sequel to Circuitry, man.
There is.
Huh.
I got to think about that.
Right. That's more interesting.
Yeah. I mean, of all the movies that didn't
Like-
call for a sequel,
It kind of ended, didn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, and like the same guy is on the cover too. So I don't.
What?
Yeah, I don't know.
Huh.
That's
Did he die at the end? I forget.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got short circuited.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Sort of. Okay, well,
Huh. Check that out soon, I guess.
I'm kind of curious. I don't know. I might watch that. I'll keep an eye out for it, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
I'd give it a 2. No, 2.5.
Yeah, I think I'd probably give it about a 2.5 as well. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning. No, I'll give it 2.5 as well, I think.
Give it just the 2.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I was really bored in the middle, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's kind of.
It's definitely that.
Yeah. And also, like, everything that happened in the middle, it's stuff we've seen before, you know?
Mhm.
It's like, oh, another bar fight scene? Oh, didn't we see one of those in, like, Universal Soldier? Like, although, actually, maybe this came out before that, so that makes me feel like a jerk. I mean, I love Van Damme's movies, but I can't tell you. I can't say with confidence that I'm an expert on the order in which they came out. So just saying. Anyway. Cool. Circuitry Man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then the next movie was your pick.
Yeah, I picked Frankenhooker.
Yes.
So yeah. What's the main character's first name? I don't remember. It's Johnny.
Yeah, something like that.
Johnny
I don't remember any
Franken.
character names.
Johnny Franken.
Franken, yes, that was
Yeah.
definitely his last name.
Johnny Franken.
He's a mad scientist / inventor
/ doctor.
Yeah.
/ doctor, failed
Yeah.
doctor,
Yeah.
failed
He's a
medical school twice or something.
Self-proclaimed doctor, basically.
So at the beginning of the movie, his girlfriend accidentally kills herself with his invention. Remote-controlled lawnmower.
So funny.
That was hysterical.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He was like, "Hey, you're right in front of it. Move."
Could you move out of the way, please? Could,
Yeah, sure.
Could
Let
you
me
move?
just push the buttons. No, come on, move out of the way. Yeah, wait, let me start it up. No, come on, move out of the way. All right, let me put it forward. Wait, no, stop.
Yeah.
It was great.
It
I was
like
not
she
expecting
knew it
that.
was right behind her too. She
Yeah.
looked at it.
Yeah, she was like, oh, ah!
It didn't zoom off super fast or anything.
No, you would have think that she would have heard it at least. You know. Anyway, what were you saying?
I don't remember.
Oh, darn. Sorry.
That's all good. So yeah, he wants it. No, he wants his girlfriend back. So he makes plans to bring her back from the dead.
Yes.
Yep.
This is when things get tricky.
Yeah.
So, all right. So to put this delicately, he pursues a bunch of streetwalkers, prostitutes, and
Hookers.
yeah, and he ends up creating this. Was it crack cocaine?
Yeah,
So-
super
Oh,
crack.
Oh yeah, super crack. He makes super crack. Crack as in the drug, super crack, and then he invites them all into a hotel room, and through a series of wacky and unfortunate coincidences, they all end up exploding.
Yeah.
Oh my god, they went fucking catnip on that super crack.
Yeah.
Couldn't help it.
Which was actually, in my opinion, the scariest scene in the movie.
Yeah,
Like-
just because of how fucking wild they went for it.
Yeah.
They didn't know it was super crack. They just thought it was crack.
It
right?
was like that weird. I rarely feel this way, but it was funny. It was hysterical, and yet at the same time, I felt really bad for them. Because it's always disturbing for me to watch people who are in such deep states of desperation, and it's just ugh, so it kind of gave me the chills while I was watching it, but it was still hilarious.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
that's
the way it was played off too, and it was
Yeah.
completely, I think, comedic as well, because just
Yeah.
the way the actor was fucking, he was like, oh shit.
yeah. No, don't, please, you don't know what you're doing. It felt
Yeah.
like a 1950s B movie, except it was about a bunch of prostitutes smoking crack.
I will say the main actor did well. Really, I
Yeah.
loved his performance throughout.
Yeah, me
He
too.
played off the cheesiness awesome.
I agree. I feel like a lot of times in a movie, if an actor is acting really bad, sometimes there are situations where the actor is bad, but a lot of the time, honestly, it really does come from the director's direction.
And writing a lot too.
yeah.
The writing of the movies.
And if a director is not good at directing actors, that's usually what ends up happening is people give really strange and unusual performances. Troll 2 is a perfect example of that. It's not that they're bad actors, it's that they're being directed by somebody who had no clue how to communicate to them, and everybody knows the story on that, so I'm not going to go into detail, but the point is, I mean, if a director is a good director, he can direct cheesy actors really well. And this is an example of that. Frank Henenlotter, the director. The same guy who did Basket Case.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, when I was watching this, it's like, oh, if this is Strange Science, if Frank Henenlotter directed it.
Yeah. Yeah, Weird Science.
Weird Science,
which is
yeah.
honestly a pretty weird movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of like that.
Because there are a lot of Basket Case kind of not references, but similarities.
Yeah.
For sure.
Especially with the weird creatures at the end.
Yeah, locked in not a basket, but locked in a chest, kind of.
That was
or whatever.
That was messed up.
Yeah.
There were a lot of messed up things going on in this movie. There was that pimp that was like, he was like a juice head or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what his deal was, but he was like terrifying.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
Like 75% of his lines were, "Where's my bitches?"
Yeah. Yeah, he really scared me. I was like, ooh. And yeah, and so anyway, so go on. You like yeah.
So after they explode, which was clearly mannequins.
Yeah.
Yep, all mannequins blowing up.
I loved it. It looked great. I mean, it was hilarious and stupid, and I loved it. I mean, it's like the weirdest effect.
So he gathers the parts and reanimates his fiance.
No, and one thing I noticed too when he was gathering the parts was I of course didn't count or anything, but it seemed like there were a lot more heads.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of feet and legs, but those were all ripped off, and I mean I'd have to do some math and shit. But it seemed definitely like there were more heads going in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess maybe
could have just been. I mean, they could have definitely done it right, but there were a lot of girls in there.
Maybe the folks in the arts and crafts department they really loved all the heads they made and wanted to have them all included. And Frank Henenlotter's like, nobody's gonna count,
Right.
But except people like you, my brother, who have mathematical brains. A lot of other people I know besides you two, they do notice stuff like that. So. I can't imagine how much of a nightmare it must be playing Mortal Kombat sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, then what happens?
After she gets reanimated, immediately goes hooking.
Yeah. Which she was creepy too. She was like
Yeah.
repeating all these random lines, and
It was all the line. I noticed it was lines everyone else said that, like the hooker was like just verbatim lines that was said previously that we heard.
yeah.
And whenever she touched someone, made them explode for some reason.
Oh yeah, that was pretty funny. I mean, it really made no sense, but it gave everybody an excuse to see more exploding bodies. Just.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the pimp goes after his bitch's body parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which.
And he catches up to her. I wrote down this thing. I said, "This is one of my bitch's arms," and then punches her head off.
It's like, how did he know that? Oh yeah.
I mean, they had tattoo. They showed those tattoo or branding. I think it was more.
Yeah.
Dark stuff.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, pretty seedy.
And then the main character comes back, and the pimp decapitates him.
Yeah, which it was kind of a weird moment because it's almost like she was normal, like.
Yeah, she like snapped out of it.
Yeah.
Out of being like a robotic
Frankenhooker,
and so she started remembering her own shit. Yeah.
It was weird, like, because didn't she was like, what happened? Oh no, like, it's just sort of like, what the heck, like, what's that all about? It's like she was broken and then became fixed.
And she was not happy about it.
No, I wouldn't have been. To have it like a totally different body, just to like wake up with that suddenly. Mm-hmm. It's really pretty creepy, to think about.
Yeah. And then that was the end of it, right? It ended with
well then there's the chest thing where he kept all the parts coming
Oh right,
coming
yeah.
alive with all the creepy fucking.
Yeah, the basket case. That's what
Yeah.
reminded me of that. Is just like that
Yeah.
whole thing, and they're all in a case.
Yeah.
Just deformed creatures.
That was
puppets.
crazy.
And then she reanimates him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
As-
out of
I
just,
think
out of
is
just,
that where the title comes from, Frankenhooker? Because his last name was Hooker.
I think
Or-
so.
His last name is Franken. I mean.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. There we go.
That's what the Frankenhooker was.
yes.
Himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the twist of the movie. Spoilers.
Kind of twist, I don't know. Him in at the very end. It's twist ending.
Yeah,
sure.
twist ending. Yeah.
Yeah. That was Frankenhooker.
Yeah. I loved it, but
Yeah, like the first few minutes, I was like, "Oh, this is already a '90s." Even though it's just a 1990 movie, I could feel like
yeah.
it's probably filmed in the late '80s, but like
Yeah.
everything, I don't know how quick. Don't know how quick generations flip over.
Yeah,
But-
I'm not sure either.
Like the hairdo was a little subdued, still fucking weird.
Yeah.
But the
It was like-
outfits, wardrobe were very '90s.
Yeah, it was depressingly 90s.
Yeah.
Like,
Not the fun parts. The
No.
kinda gross, ugly
yeah.
costumes.
The part where everybody has a hangover. Like, it's just not fun to look at. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I liked the news report of the accident of exploding. Because
That was
I
hysterical.
just thought that was really just the jokes they were making were really well written too. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is a comedy movie. I
Yeah.
think just for that one scene. It's just so funny. The news reporter making all these witty quips about people exploding.
Yeah. It was, yeah, that was funny. There were a lot of really funny jokes. Or not jokes, but like moments, like, yeah, like you could tell because like the way, like the style of it, the film, it was sort of like a cross between like an old school horror movie and like a 80s, like 70s, 80s, more 70s, I'd say, type of like exploitation movie, like, which is kind of what Basket Case was as well. But I don't know, it's always cool and interesting to me that, and like, this isn't my favorite film of his is Brain Damage, which, that in my like that like out of this and Basket Case and Brain Damage is my favorite, but that one I think was made in like the late 80s, and that one is like, again, the same sort of thing, except these like combining like 50s horror movies with like 70s exploitation films in order to kind of explore social themes and stuff. I like the way he does that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like they had the General Frankenstein kind of trope of him opening the roof with the chain link thing, and
Yeah.
he had to wait for a storm to resurrect her. Is that
which is classic, like
classic Frankenstein shit?
yeah. And they don't do anything too fancy with it. It's
No.
it's very very much like it's very true to that whole thing. So
And what'd you guys think of him drilling holes in his head?
that was
Oh, yeah.
that was kind of gross.
Yeah, which I don't think would work. I mean, I'm no doctor.
Yeah, like every time he would start to have a conscience or something, and start to kind of feel bad for what he was doing, he would like suddenly take a drill and drill it into the back of his neck.
Yeah.
And then he'd go all psychopathic, like Jeffrey. Like this is basically like a Jeffrey Dahmer type of character, like So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Overall, I'd say if you're open-minded about your horror, it's one to check out. If not for the rather silly effects on the exploding prostitutes.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't even necessarily consider it a horror all that much.
Not really.
I thought it was
but-
more of a comedy, honestly.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
like a strange comedy.
yeah, I would only call it a horror in the sense that it still has like this,
Killers.
and the basic
monster.
tropes about
Yeah.
the Frankenstein's monster and the all that stuff. But I don't know.
A lot of like fucking rom-coms, like those have horror tropes in them, like being stuck at your in-laws over the winter.
That's
stuff.
true.
That's like a very common horror trope.
And-
Cabin in the woods thing.
And also, like, a lot of people forget that Frankenstein started off as more of a science fiction story. Like,
Yep.
it's really only a horror story because time has made it that, you know. But at its core, it's really more of a science fiction story, you know. I still consider it horror, but
Yeah, I mean, same with the original Dracula.
Yeah.
Bram Stoker. It was a lot about the new technology of blood transfusions and
yeah.
new upgrades in health, medical benefits and shit like that. It was a lot about that.
Yeah.
The turning of the Victorian age to then whatever came after that.
I mean, yeah, Dracula, in a sense, is a story about the future. And that's why it's like the threat to the future is something that doesn't age, you know?
And there's
Like-
also that's not science fiction, but yeah, not what you said, but what I was about to say.
Oh.
I was about to say it also had to do with a lot with the coming of sexual freedom, more or less.
Yeah, definitely.
Of that age.
Yeah, which was a really scary idea for people during that
yeah.
time period.
Yeah.
I mean, because people didn't really know. I mean, people trusted each other, but people didn't really know each other either. I mean, so
Yeah.
anyway, it's weird time. Anyway, but Frankenhooker is more new agey. It's
Yeah.
more. I wouldn't call it current. It's definitely dated, but it's about things that were definitely relevant to the time, and in a sense still are. I mean, prostitution is still a profession that exists, and you know, not much has changed, you know, regarding society's perception of it. So this is kind of I mean, it's certainly fun for what it is as a B movie, but I think, you know, it also kind of marks a certain kind of historical stamp as far as the way this guy, at least Frank Henenlotter, viewed this culture. I mean, so in that regard, I think that there's a lot to appreciate here.
Yeah.
You know, but it's still just a silly horror movie.
Yeah.
Or comedy, really. Yeah. I'd probably give it. I'd probably give it 3 out of 5. You know, like same as Basket Case. I enjoy these kind of movies quite a bit. You know, and I'd probably watch it again.
Yeah, I'd give it a 3.5, almost even a 4, because I did really enjoy watching it. It was
Yeah.
fun, funny.
Yeah.
And, like nothing was like it was actually pretty well done, put together.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, since we're now getting into the 90s, it's a lot of better restorations and shit. So like,
Yes.
didn't look like complete garbage either. It had,
Yeah.
you know, looked nice. The acting from the main character was great.
Hmm.
I thought he played a crazy dude really well.
Yeah. Agreed.
And then so like almost a 4. I don't know what's holding it back, but
Yeah.
3.5 for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll also say 3.5.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so my pick is a movie called Cool as Ice, and it is the film. I don't know if it's the film debut. I don't know if this came before or after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze, but I don't know. I can't remember, but it is I'll call it the leading
So
debut. The leading debut of infamous at this point, early 90s, late 80s hip hop artist Vanilla Ice. It's
Hell yeah.
yeah,
He's an American treasure.
yes. And I grew up in the 90s, and I can remember a time when my siblings adored Vanilla Ice.
For what is what I want to know. Like, I don't want. Like, he's an enigma to me. Like,
Yeah.
is he fucking with us, or is he really that? Like, I can see him just playing this vanilla. I mean, of course, I've seen him in interviews, and he's definitely more subdued or whatever. But
Yeah.
I couldn't like if I want to know what the fandom of Vanilla Ice, why they liked him back in the day.
Well, I've been trying to kind of explore that, and that's actually kind of why I wanted to rewatch Cool as Ice, because so I mean, growing up in the 90s, like I had older siblings that grew up in the 80s, and there were a certain like group of films that we watched again and again and again growing up, and there were a lot of classics that we watched, like Stand By Me and Princess Bride and all those things. But then there were some other movies that we watched that probably wouldn't be the type of thing that like everybody growing up would watch, that were kind of not very good movies.
Yeah.
Clifford was one of them. The Wizard was another one. And then there was this one, and this is one that I watched multiple times growing up, and so a part of me will always feel very nostalgic about this movie, because I have a distinct memory of being in the living room with my entire family. This is the only movie I can think of that I've watched with my entire family, in the living room watching Cool as Ice. Like I have a distinct memory of that, and so that's what I think of when I watch this movie.
Yeah.
But is it a good movie?
No.
Do you guys want to elaborate on why?
Well, I mean, I've heard of this movie, of course, but
Yeah.
then Cool as Ice. Is that the bobsled team movie? No, it's that Vanilla Ice movie. Oh, yeah, no, that's a bad movie.
You're thinking of Cool Runnings.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just heard of the Vanilla Ice movie. I was like, I'll pass, thanks.
Yeah.
So I've definitely heard of it, and I knew it. It met my expectations.
Yeah.
It wasn't worse or better than.
You were expecting a movie starring Vanilla Ice and what that could possibly be.
Was this?
And that was exactly what this was.
Yes. Like one thing I was just like, the opening credits, I paused. No, and just wrote it down. Like it was so Vanilla Icy 90s.
Well,
cheesy,
this movie includes four Vanilla Ice songs, new Vanilla Ice songs, at least new for the time. Yeah.
Was it just made for the movie, or did it come out with an actual album too?
I don't think it came out with an album. I think the songs were just singles, but they debuted in this movie.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I'm just still confused.
Oh, and
like his
and
music.
two of those songs appear at the very beginning of the movie, because for some reason this film opens with two music videos.
Yeah.
Like, and they were distinctly two of them. Like, they were distinct from each other. The first one and the second one had totally different styles. This movie starts with two music videos.
Yeah. And that's what I was like, oh, okay, this movie is going to be music videos loosely tied together by some dumb plot, which yeah, it's kind of what it was.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like right when the first music video started, I was like, oh, that's what this movie is going to be then.
And this music, and of course the music, it's not my cup of tea.
That's what I'm still. That's why he's an enigma. Do people like his music and on an actual musical basis, or like a sarcastic kind of?
Well,
I mean,
I think, okay, because I love hip hop music, and I think that
I do too.
Yeah, I think we all love hip hop music, and there's a reason we love hip hop music, and this is not hip hop music to any of us, right?
Pop.
This is totally pop.
It's pop. Yeah.
It's not hip hop. It's pop. I think, my answer to your question is that because there was something very childish about Vanilla Ice, that this is basically the ultimate teenage girl fantasy, of the early 90s. And I know that's saying like that's weird, but like basically, so there was a time when Elvis movies were getting made, and I just discovered recently that my dad is a huge fan of Elvis movies, which I've seen a couple of them, and they're the worst things I've ever seen in my life. I don't recommend them at all. He's a horrible actor, but he made a lot of movies, and people went and saw them. This is Vanilla Ice's attempt to make his version of an Elvis movie. And it's a really strange movie to watch, because it almost feels like everybody around him like realizes that that's what it is, but he doesn't. And so it's almost like he doesn't seem in on the joke of his own movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's really strange. There's like a part where he says something stupid, and then one of his buddies says something like, "Oh, that's great. That's very great." And it's like like you can tell nobody around him is taking this seriously, and so it's really interesting, because it's like Vanilla Ice is. I mean, drop that zero and get with a hero. Like, can you get any more blatant than that? ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it. I mean,
I mean,
it's
one thing I will say about the music videos is I do want to learn them dance moves.
oh my god,
Like, he's a good dancer, damn.
he's like very energetic and
Like,
yeah.
it's also, I don't remember the name of the movie. House Party. It's like an
Oh,
older movie.
yeah, House Party.
With like two African
Yeah.
black gentlemen.
Yeah,
Yeah, they have dope ass dance movies. Always
Yeah.
want to learn those dance routines, but
Kid
I
and
need
Play.
another person.
That was Kid and Play,
Yeah.
House Party. I love that movie.
Yeah,
And
great movie.
you know, that movie was a milestone for a couple different reasons. You know, it was like an urbanized version of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah.
And there was so much versatility in what was going on with the characters and stuff. I mean, plot wise, it was your basic kind of thing. You know, I mean, we've seen those kinds of movies before where young people go berserk all over town or do their own thing, or get away with something. You know, I mean, everybody grew up with those kinds of movies, but House Party was about real issues. And it's one of the first movies that I can think of off the top of my head, or at least one of the first American movies I can think of off the top of my head that actually explored the idea of safe sex, which was very daring at the
I
time.
didn't even know that.
Yeah. House Party was really groundbreaking. And I'm not going to say that it's necessarily a good movie. I think there are aspects of it that are dated and there's things about it that won't gel with a contemporary audience. But I love House Party. And I agree with you about the dance moves and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I'd like to learn the ones in this movie just for they fucking are hilarious.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they're doing like the
Start
twist
whipping them
sticks.
out in front of people for
Yes. Oh man, all this talk and we forgot to talk about the plot.
There's a plot.
Yeah. It's fairly basic.
Pretty much replace Kazam with Vanilla Ice and minus the magic.
Yeah. He is a genie. He seems to think he's a genie. I mean, he
Yeah.
thinks that he can just do whatever he wants, you know. Like there's this girl who she's a good lady, you know, she's doing her thing. She gets straight A's. But she wants something different out of life, you know. Her life lacks excitement. It lacks variety. She's dating some cool guy, you know, who's got a cool car, who, you know, wants to go wants to take the next step with her, but she's just not into it, you know.
But the thing is also when we first meet them both,
Yeah.
we don't know that. They seem like a normal couple.
No,
And then Vanilla Ice comes up, running around, calling him a dick.
Yeah. So keep in mind all this
Like,
that.
for nothing. Like, the guy just seems legit normal.
Yeah.
He had like no lines, and
Yeah.
he just calls him a dick.
All of this stuff that I just described happens throughout the course of the movie. Like after she's already met Vanilla Ice's character. In fact, the first time she meets him, he almost kills her. So, what do you think of that scene?
Oh, that was hilarious. I was like, okay, this is what we're getting at, because that was the first actual scene.
Yeah. So they do not meet cute at all.
No.
They meet probably about as badly a way to meet somebody as you can imagine. Can you imagine meeting somebody who almost kills you, like right off the bat? I would never want to be near that person ever again.
Right.
It was like intentional too.
Yeah. She's riding because she's like a equestrian type girl. And she's riding her horse and he hops the fence and startles the animal and she gets tossed off. People have died that way.
Yeah.
And she gets up, brushing the dust off, you know, and then she hits him and then she ends up being the one that apologizes to him, which made no sense because he almost killed her. She just punched him in the stomach. And, you know, and he makes fun of her the whole time. He's like flinging insults at her. It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. He's a bully, you know? You just want to punch him in the face.
He's negging her.
Yeah.
It works.
What the heck? He's like Napoleon Dynamite. Like he's so dorky, and yet he's a total instigator. But somehow, despite he's our hero, and despite that rather poor way of meeting a person, she ends up somehow falling for him.
I don't know why.
I guess it's because of his singing.
He's so cool. He's so cool. Oh my god.
The he's the most awkward person on screen. He has no screen presence, zero screen presence, you know. And I don't mean that to insult him. It's the person he's playing, Johnny Van Steen or whatever. You find out in one scene when she's reading his ID card. I mean, his character makes no sense. Like, who is he? We find out nothing about him. He's like a blank slate. I guess he's supposed to be Vanilla Ice, but you know, this movie doesn't tell us anything about who he is as a person.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like he's like he may as well be a genie.
And I don't even know what him and his crew were doing.
Yeah.
And like they were stuck there because one of his friends' bike
Yeah.
and they were trying to fix it, but the mechanics just ripped it apart.
Yeah.
It'll be a few days.
Yeah.
And
So
his
they're
crew's
stuck in
just-
this mysterious town in the middle of nowhere.
And they're living with those mechanics. His crew is
Yeah.
so fucking weird.
Yeah. And so there is a plot that ends up unfolding in the midst of all this. So the good girl's dad, turns out he's in the witness protection program,
Mm-hmm.
and some gangsters who they were kind of creepy, both of them. I don't know what their deal was, you know, but they seemed very like, I don't know, they seemed like evil people, you know, like they seemed like somebody who would, you know, like kill an animal. Like they seemed too scary even for this movie, in my opinion, you know. And because I kind of feel like this was a family movie. I sort of suspect that, you know. But anyway, they're the creepy kind of villain, you know. They're tall, odd people in trench coats, and I guess they're mobsters. And
Or were they dirty? I couldn't tell
Or-
if they were the dirty cops because that's what it was. He
yeah,
like, went against dirty cops,
Right.
or whatever.
yeah, maybe it was the dirty cops.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah, but regardless, they're pursuing her father, and in the midst they end up who did they kidnap her brother, and then and so Vanilla Ice gets pulled into the plot
Mm-hmm.
and has to save him.
And so I was wondering I don't know why the girl was so upset that her dad lied to her about being in witness protection. I think that was a valid lie,
Yeah,
especially for a child who might accidentally, even if they don't mean it, say something they shouldn't, and then it gets back.
yeah,
Like honestly, even if I was in that situation, I wouldn't tell my child until like they're out of college.
I agree. That's
so
a
it
perfectly
doesn't
reasonable
even-
thing to
just so
do.
it doesn't even bother them in life. They don't have to know about it.
Yeah,
Once they're done with college, I'll sit them down and say, "So, listen, like,
I know this isn't like an ideal way to tell
it's
you,
not a
but
good situation in any sort of a manner. But like, why the daughter was so upset with it in the beginning? You lied to well,
Yeah.
you could have died if I didn't lie to you.
Yeah.
You know,
It's-
it's rather me lie to you than to be dead. You
yeah,
know?
it was
Kind
ridiculous.
it's kind of the dad's fault that they came after him. He could
Yeah.
have told her before they were on camera, but nope.
Or he could have not. He could have been like, "Yeah, don't feel well. Don't." They didn't need him on camera, really. Like,
Yeah,
because it was her accomplishment. They could have just talked to her. He could have just not been on camera if he was fucking smart.
yeah.
Like, and you could tell he was like kind of covering his face, like, you know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like he could have just said no. I agree. It was, you know. So yeah, it was his fault. It's his fault that all this stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, it's not Vanilla Ice's fault, which is
He gets the blame from the dad.
oh yeah, that's the thing that didn't make sense to me. The dad blames Vanilla Ice, and yet Vanilla Ice is the last person in the world who'd be this kind of. I mean, you look at
Have
him.
you met him?
Yeah, like
Have you talked to him
he's
for
like-
30 seconds?
and I don't mean to say the word nerd in a negative way, but he's like the nerdiest person I can ever imagine, Vanilla Ice, and which is why I think it's absolutely delightful that he was so popular with teenage girls, you know. But
And
but-
a little kid too.
yeah, oh yeah, whatever that was all about, you know. But yeah, like he's not the kind of person. Obviously, he draws so much attention to himself. The way he dresses, he looks ridiculous.
Yes.
You know, and so like why would he assume that the person who's obviously standing out in town, who everybody's whispering about, oh, who's this, you know, odd guy with the hip hop like, or whatever that is. I mean, everybody. There's even a part where they're biking down the road in slow motion, and people are staring at them like they're like lunatics. They look like they escaped from an asylum. You know, he looks insane. You know, and so obviously he's not involved in all this. He's obviously oblivious to what's going on. I mean, it was silly of the dad to even like get upset considering that his daughter was like a senior and was about to leave home. I mean, like, I guess if he's like the kind of person who would care about that type of thing, I get it. But Vanilla Ice of all people, this guy's clearly not a threat. He's a big dork, and she already has a boyfriend anyway. It's like, whatever. Anyway, they try to develop a love story between the two, but then they just kind of give up on it. There's a part that's pretty weird where he drops ice into her mouth.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Oh yeah, just breaks into her house.
Yeah. Like wakes her up by putting an ice cube in her mouth.
Yeah, like that was a little odd. Yeah. Ice. I love it. You know,
Vanilla Ice would do that.
Yeah. One thing I will say about this movie, though, it's well shot. I gotta say, like, as far as lighting, camera angles, composition, it's very, very well shot and well edited. Well, I wouldn't say well edited. It's well edited in the sense of a music video being well edited. It's well edited up to those standards. So it's kind of unusual that, and yeah, the cinematographer is Janos. I don't remember his last name, but he's somebody who most of his films have been like with like Spielberg. So
really?
he was the cinematographer behind Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, Lincoln, like all these movies, How to Make an American Quilt with Winona Ryder. He's responsible for some good looking movies, you know, and he was the cinematographer behind Cool as Ice. It's just kind of funny. Just scroll through his filmography and then Cool as Ice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the movie looks amazing, you know.
I mean, yeah.
It's hard to appreciate it because everything else is not so good.
Like it wasn't something that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
But it also it definitely didn't detract like most movies would.
Like there's this
genre,
there's a beautifully shot scene which is completely stupid where the Vanilla Ice has an altercation with her boyfriend and his car ends up getting damaged. That scene has like this golden lighting over it, and it's like nighttime, and the color composition. It's a good looking scene. It's just
I didn't even notice. I knew that scene. I didn't notice.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's hard to really notice stuff like that because what's happening on screen, the script is complete nonsense.
You're just looking at Vanilla Ice in a nice looking scene. So it's like, sure, the background, the scene, everything, the lighting, everything looks great, but you stick Vanilla Ice right in the middle of it. It's like, what? And he's some type of fighter too. He knows how to fight. He easily beat up 4 dudes that were fucking on him at once.
Which, if this movie had been a martial arts movie, I mean, instant classic.
Yeah.
Why didn't he do that? Like Vanilla Ice.
Throwing some like hints, like them waiting for the motorcycle to be repaired. You see him training on one of those wooden block things or something. Man. Just throwing the little tidbits here and there.
I would love that, Robert Van Winkle, aka Vanilla Ice, missed a golden opportunity of not making this a martial arts movie.
Yeah.
Instead, he made, 50s style Elvis movie set in the 90s, which makes it make even less sense than an Elvis movie, but whatever.
Yeah, and there were so many. They could have replaced all those. Because I was honestly bored through a lot of this movie because there's these really long montages.
Yeah.
Slow montages of nothing. They weren't doing anything. They were just kind of dancing around in a field or driving around.
A lot of it was actually Vanilla Ice posing, going, just posing on benches and doing his like homie fingers and all that,
dancing around, like climbing on that like half-built house.
Yeah,
and shit.
Yeah. It was a lot of it was pretty much him voguing, which I guess if you are the kind of person who, because apparently these people existed in the early 90s, if you're the kind of person who enjoys watching people that look like Vanilla Ice voguing, you're gonna have a great time with this movie because he's basically doing that in every scene. He's posing throughout the entire movie on camera. So he's going like, yo. Instead of that, triangle chin.
Instead of that, if they did monologues of him training,
that would have been so much better. So much better.
Or not monologues, fucking
Montages. Yeah.
yeah.
I would have given this a 5 out of 5.
Hell yeah.
Martial arts, Vanilla Ice. We'll never get that. But I guess he was in Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze. So at least we have that. Yeah. Anyway, I love this movie. I give it 4 out of 5 for the same reasons I gave Showgirls 4 out of 5. For the same reasons I would give a lot of bad movies a 4 out of 5, because it's the kind of bad movie that for me, just I can't help but appreciate it. It's not only for nostalgic reasons, but also it's a funny reminder to me that at one point Vanilla Ice was so popular, and he was in the hearts and minds and dreams of teenage girls. Like,
I would have no idea.
yeah, I just find that so hilarious. And this movie,
joke for his entire career.
yeah, well, yeah, he was popular. It's crazy. And this movie will always be a cold, hard reminder of that fact. And I appreciate it for that. So much better than Spice World.
Hot take right there.
You could say whatever you want. If you hated it, I totally get it.
I did not like it. I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
A 2 because I was just bored.
Yeah.
Like, there was honestly I maybe 2 at tops of the music videos.
Yeah.
But just because they're funny, and I don't know, I like that kind of goofy, wild 90s hip hop dancing.
Yeah. I mean,
like, that's why I liked that other movie we mentioned. I forgot the name already. Like, I love those dances. That's fun.
Oh yeah.
And just Vanilla Ice.
House Party. Yeah.
Yeah, House Party. Yeah. So Vanilla Ice being in it was funny.
Yeah.
He's Mystique. So I'd give it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
I want to see. I think he can do a resurgence if he goes hard in the comedies.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Like, takes himself for what he is. I think he could do some decent comedies if he wants to.
Yeah, and I hope he does. And I would agree with you. As much as I love this movie, it is pretty boring. It's fun to watch with other people.
Yeah.
I've watched this with other people in a room,
see that.
people drinking, all that stuff. This movie's a blast
I can
to watch with other
definitely see
people.
that, yeah.
You know, it's up there with like Wet Hot American Summer and other movies
I like
that are.
watching it alone though.
Oh, I do too. I don't get me wrong, but watching it with other people is so much fun.
Yeah.
And this is the same way. You know, probably not a lot of fun to watch on your own, but yeah. I watched this I watched it with a friend. Like, I've watched this with other people a lot, and yeah, it's fun in that way, but as a movie it's probably not very good. I would agree it's boring. So
Yeah. I gave it a 1.
Nice, yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'll get another one with another watch.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 1.5 because honestly, I really didn't like it.
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, like,
I was feeling generous, but yeah, I didn't really like it.
is there anything you want to say about it?
Uh,
Anything more? I mean,
in my Letterboxd review, all I said was it's a 90-minute music video where Vanilla Ice tries to sleep with a teenager.
pretty much.
I didn't even think of that
That
really.
basically nails it.
How
Yeah.
old is he?
I think he's like he's 24, 25. You know, he acted like Pee Wee Herman, so he may as well have been a kid. I mean, he's a weirdo.
One of my favorite lines that I wrote down
Yeah.
was when he spotted her down the street. He's like, "Hey, it's the chick who drives the horse."
There were some good lines in this movie. I mean,
you
you know, it's like, you're never gonna see me or my car ever again, or whatever. Like, it's just ridiculous.
and him jumping the car at the end too.
Oh yeah, imagine that. Oh, I forgot something. It's like, and his insults were stupid. He literally at one point he says, you hit pretty good for a girl. I'm like, you need to shut up. Like, you are not helping yourself right now.
And obviously the only reason they named the main character Nick
Yeah.
is to make you're a dick jokes, which I heard all throughout my entire childhood
gosh.
growing up.
Oh
So
man.
I'm just like, fucking of course.
Yeah. Oh man, I would have hated it just for that. If my name were Nick, I'd give it a 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 5 or however.
Yeah, okay. It is a 1, yeah. Just for that.
Yeah, excellent.
Drop from a 2 to a 1. So it's a 1. Fuck that.
Well, Cool as ice. It's cool as ice.
Melted ice.
Yeah, melted ice. Ice is really nothing when you think about it. It's just yeah. All right, cool. So, do you guys want to pick movies for next week?
Yeah.
Or not next week, but next time we do this.
Yeah, I got.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you want me to go first?
Yeah. Go.
Okay. So my choice is something I have not watched, so I hope it's good. It's called The Vagrant, and it stars Bill Paxton. So
It's a B movie.
I think I saw it on a list of. I have no idea. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I saw it on a list of B movies, but I don't know. But then again, I see a lot of stuff. But this was a movie that I've never seen, and I remember I saw because I used to go to the video store a lot when I was a kid. When I went with my dad for the weekends, we do that, and I think I either saw the poster for it or the VHS tape, and I remember the cover like scared the crap out of me, and I never wanted to watch it after I saw that. But now I'm kind of curious about it because I think it was because I remember that the cover for it pretty well, and I'm curious as to whether the movie's any good or not. So I'm gonna choose The Vagrant.
Cool. Part of me wants to pick Circuitry Man 2, but we'll hold off on that.
Give it a few weeks to breathe.
Yeah. Maybe we can do a sequel-a-thon or something, or sequel.
Sequels are the ones we've done. That'd be a good episode, I think.
Or sequel month or something. We got to watch more movies that have sequels, I guess. But
Yeah.
Anyway.
I got one then.
Ooh.
That can be added to that list.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Did you want to say yours first then?
Sure. Surf Ninjas.
Okay. Is
All
that
right.
made by the Nazi ones?
I don't-
Surfer guy?
No.
I don't think so.
I've heard of Surf Ninjas.
Surf Ninjas. All
I've
right.
heard of that one, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it when I was 5 or 6. I haven't seen it since. I remember the commercial for it because I used to watch the VHS tape of the Ninja Turtles movies. I used to watch the Ninja Turtles movies all the time, and one of them, I think it was the third one, had the trailer for Surf Ninja, or maybe it was the second one. I can't remember. One of them. I don't know why I keep bringing up Ninja Turtles, but I guess because of Vanilla. Oh yeah, yo, word to your mother. So I remember the trailer, and I know that I saw the movie. It's another one of those movies that I just remember the trailer more than I remember the movie, but I know that I saw the movie. It's same with Three Ninjas, like for another ninja movie. Like I don't remember that movie, but I remember the trailer.
Yeah.
The 90s were all about the ninjas.
Yeah.
I know that
The Ninjas and the Angels.
How Did This Get Made did an episode on it, and so that's the only reason I know of it.
Okay. Yeah, I never. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Never actually seen it, but seen the trailer.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to do some non-horror for once for my pick.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, mine is Carnosaur.
Ah, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. I saw part of it. I haven't seen the whole thing. It was a long time ago. Again, I don't remember it. So.
Yep. I'm choosing that one. It's like, I guess, a Jurassic Park ripoff.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I went on I was just watching some YouTube videos. It was like internet mysteries and just had this mentioned Carnosaur. I was like, that seems like a good movie for the podcast.
Ah, perfect. All right. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, cool. All right. You guys have anything else you want to say?
I don't think so.
All right.
Yeah, no, I think I'm all set.
Out of the 3 movies, I'd say, just putting aside my star rating, I have to say of the 3 movies we watched, I think I enjoyed Frankenhooker the most. So.
Yeah, that would be my recommendations, Frankenhooker.
Yeah.
Out of any of the 3.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Well, until next time, have a good night and peace.
All right. Good night, guys.
See ya.